It's not my role to tell somebody what they can and cannot do with their own body, provided that they're not harming anybody else.
If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
An infrastructure committee report relative to raising the legal minimum age for the sale and possession of all tobacco and nicotine products. On a vote of 3-1, the Municipal Services Facility and Infrastructure Committee recommends to full council that staff draft an ordinance to change the age of sale and possession of all tobacco and nicotine products from 18 years old to 21 years old for review and consideration by the Municipal Services Facility and Infrastructure Committee.
Councilor Manley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to carry out the intent of the committee report.
Second. It's been moved to second. Councilor Manley.
Okay. I probably could stand up here and talk for half an hour about this experience of having folks come and talk both pro and con. But what I really want to do, because I think you all got a lot of this material, we certainly did, and as a committee, individual members did their own research. And I think all of us probably know someone, and they may be close to us, or we may have a friend who has now been dealing with the negative effects of nicotine and tobacco health-wise. And so what we tried to do, as Gary Limero pointed out to us, was separate the emotional part of nobody should ever smoke any tobacco or deal with nicotine to really looking at the facts of the matter. This was brought to us by Kate McNally. She's the chair of the Tobacco Coalition for Cheshire County. She gave us some really good information and some really good resources. She told us that there were about 3,500 18 to 21-year-olds in this area, and that the latest youth behavior risk profile, which is done in the high school, pointed out that 1 to 3 folks had experimented with vaping, which is considered a tobacco product, and 1 in 10 had considered or was smoking cigarettes. So the situation, of course, at the high schools, which really was some of the impetus to bring this forward right now, is that there are a lot of students that are 18 years old, and there's no rule about vaping. We heard a report from Keene High School senior who was on the Governor's Commission, the Teenage Governor's Commission, not yours, Councilor Hansel. A very, what do I want to say, mature young man. And he spoke about walking into the men's room or the boys' room and walking into students vaping. I think that what we tried to do as a committee is sift through the vaping versus the cigarettes, the chew, the cigars, you know, tobacco, because really they're just one. And this is really about, you know, what you want to do with the health of these young folks. Best practices for dealing with preventing underage use of tobacco products. One is to limit access. So by changing the law to go from 18 to 21, there are lots of students that aren't going to go and do that. I just want to say a couple comments about vaping. I think that originally when it started, it was talked about as being a way to help folks quit smoking. What we're seeing with our kids is these are kids that are saying, oh, I'll try vaping, which comes in nice flavors and a little attractive package, a flash drive package. I'll try them and be cool, and you know, this will be, after all, it's safe. And if it has nicotine in it, it's not safe. nicotine and heroin are the most addictive drugs that we have in this country. And what that means when I say that is anybody can get addicted. So, you know, if you smoke cigarettes, if you smoke enough cigarettes or cigars or whatever, because of the nicotine in them, you can become addicted. That's what that means. So let me see what else. One of the other points that was made over and over again was that the state refused to make this statewide. Now, at this time, there are 6 states that have set across the board and raised the age to 21, and that is Oregon, California, Maine, Massachusetts, New Jersey, interestingly, and Hawaii. So that's statewide. There are also at least 340 cities and counties throughout the country that have also changed that to that 21 years old. Okay, all of you have certainly been aware in the past several weeks about the FDA coming out against vaping, saying that it is highly addictive and a concern. And my feeling is the FDA is pretty conservative when they make these pronouncements and are often way behind what we sometimes see anecdotally. So I think that we need to recognize that. Okay, another point that was brought up was the potential loss to our community, small business, small stores, mom and pop stores, like a place like Monadnock Vapor across the street. And I think that we have to think, okay, is this about the health of our young folks, or is this really about committing, saying that our businesses need to rely on this money? My feeling was, this is my personal feeling, is that the state, the reason the state kicked the can down to the cities is that they made $261.3 million off tobacco taxes last year. Lots of money. And a very small amount of that dribbled down to prevention efforts throughout the state. Let me see, I think I've got 2 more points. One is another issue that was raised is that, if you go in the military at 18 and are sent to, you know, anywhere in the world, you can, you can die for this country, you can fight for this country, you should be able to smoke cigarettes or whatever for this country, or use tobacco, I guess I should say. However, you know, we know that alcohol is age 21, so I don't think it's really that different. And, okay, and the other point that was brought up was, how is this going to be enforced? I was hoping the chief would be here, but I see we have someone in the audience if you need to be, if you need further information. What I discovered is that currently the underage smoking offense is a violation, so it does not rise to having a criminal record, and it is either a $100 fine or 20 hours of community service. So that wouldn't change, it would just go to 21 instead of 18. So I want you to think about this, and I guess my parting comment is that, you know, if you have a son, a daughter, a grandson, a granddaughter, do you want them smoking cigarettes? Do you want them vaping? Do you want them involved in nicotine or not? And for me, I guess that's the bottom line, is that this is a health issue. Thank you.
Further comments? Councilor Greenwald.
Just to remind the council, what we're talking about is directing staff to draft an ordinance, which means we're going to go through this whole conversation in much greater detail. So I don't think we have to say it. Now that I've just said that, my personal thoughts on this, I ran it through opposition, and I'm sure that those that are opposed to this ordinance and the concept and discussion, it's a matter of personal choice. Historically, prohibition has not worked out well. It's not our business. I've used that discussion previously. We're here to deal with roads, basketballs, human services, so it's kind of outside our job description. And then, as Councilor Manwaring said, the enforceability might be questionable. But on the other hand, I think this council needs to make a statement. I remember going through the same sort of a discussion regarding smoking in restaurants. And I was banned from Lindy's Diner for a period of time because I was a supporter, along with Councilor England, to say that you cannot smoke in a restaurant. Fortunately, that turned out well. The state came along, a little behind the conversation, but they came along and they followed our lead. And I'm really hoping that that's what's going to happen here, because it really should be a state issue. But let us be the leaders. And finally, just as a thought, how can we not do anything possible to keep poison away from our residents? I borrowed a pack of cigarettes, and Surgeon General's warning: smoking causes lung cancer, heart disease, emphysema, and may complicate pregnancy. Is that ambiguous? I don't think so. So hopefully let's move this forward, draft an ordinance, and hopefully we will vote it in a positive way.
Further comments?
Thank you.
Councilor Rice.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think we can all agree that public health and safety is very important. But I feel the need to explain why I'll be voting no tonight. And that's because I think that if you're a legal adult, which is somebody who's over the age of 18, it's not my role to tell somebody what they can and cannot do with their own body, provided that they're not harming anybody else. I don't want to waste staff time, and that's why I'll be voting no against drafting the ordinance. Thank you.
Councilor Sutherland.
Thank you, Your Honor. At the committee level, I also voted against this. Reason being is, like one of the reasons that Councilor Greenwald raised, I think this is a state issue. The state authorizes the sale. They permit the licenses for sale of tobacco and alcohol. They are also enforcement for tobacco sales and alcohol. This is the only product that I can think of that the state enables the local businesses, municipalities, to regulate at a higher age for sale. And 21 is not the limit. We could go to 99 if we wanted to. But just like when I get mail that's not addressed to me, I forward it on to the appropriate people. I think we should be forwarding this on to Concord. I think this just demonstrates that the folks in Concord are unable to lead, but they should. Quite frankly, I think that we won't see 21 in this state until Vermont turns 21, because Maine and Massachusetts already are. So, but I think it's one of the good reasons for us to write a resolution to the governor and to the legislature to say, take care of this. This is your mess. Thank you.
Councilor Filio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Initially, when this first came to committee, my first response was, well, under which said that, they're 18-year-olds, we should let them do as they please. I think what we've seen with alcohol kind of throws that theory out the window. There are areas down the road where, we just, whether it's random or not, we pick an age and go with it. This particular situation, I think, is even more important than the alcohol. I'm just looking at a report today on a raid on one of the companies that does vaping, because basically they got 10,000 documents, I believe, showing how their whole intent was to go to high school students. And just following up on this, just reading the article here, it says in the past year, roughly 3 million high school students are now vaping, up 75% from last year. 75%. That's marketing. That isn't just somebody came along and said, oh, look at that. That is marketing. That is back in the Joe Campbell days. They are marketing to high school students because nicotine is addictive. We all know, it started back with cigarettes, in our parents' generation. We get a filter on them, they're safe, or ours is safer than this one. Don't worry about it, they're all safe. And now look at us, with all of our lawsuits nationwide and the cancer deaths nationwide. I'm sure a generation that was on councils back then would like to look back a ways and say, could we have done better? That's what we are right now. We're being told, well, don't worry about the 18-year-olds. It's not 18-year-olds, it's 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, now it's backing up in the middle school. They're being targeted. Yes, the state of New Hampshire kicked the can down the road. They always kick the can down the road. And they're going to keep kicking it down the road. But some communities can't use that for an excuse, and Keene never has. We need to do the right thing and step forward and say, you know what, we'll protect our youth, or we'll do our damnedest to protect our youth, even if the state doesn't. Councilor Clark and I sat on the committee, thanks to the mayor, a while ago when we talked about opiates. Well, it was a decade ago when they said opiates were safe. Don't worry about them, they're not addicting. Don't worry. Nobody questioned it. No city council questioned it. Maybe looking back, maybe if we had that chance to look back then, would we have done something different if we had known? Yes, we would have. We know. We're not guessing. The facts are in front of us. We know. Let's do the right thing. Bring the age to 21. We will never look back and regret it.
Okay, further questions or comments? Councilor Hansel.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will be voting to move this along. I still have a lot of questions how this is going to flush out. I mean, I think if there was a question before us whether we were going to write a letter encouraging the state to do something about this, or saying that we wanted to keep kids from smoking, I don't think that would really be an issue. But I will be moving this along just because I don't really understand how we're going to practically enforce this new age restriction. Having a new restriction isn't going to be any good unless we can enforce it, and as I understand it, I don't think our police department is currently going out and has a program in place to make sure that vendors are complying with the current law. So I'll be interested to hear from our staff and hear how they would implement this if we do pass it. But there's a lot we have to figure out about this. I'm in favor of pushing it along so we can get more information, really. Thank you.
Questions for the first time? Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Ron. A number of years ago, we partnered with a group called, then it was called Monadnock 2020, now called Healthy Monadnock. The goal is Keene becoming one of the healthiest communities in the country. And how do you do that? You have to build a portfolio with issues such as this into that portfolio to show that you're one of the healthiest communities. We did that with the no smoking in restaurants law. I think we did that when we outlawed cannabis using for fragrance issues. And I think we can do that with this. Otherwise, there's no sense in us even partnering with Healthy Monadnock and trying to be part of that. We have to give them, we're the ones that have to give them the background to work with in order for us to achieve that goal. I've heard a lot about enforcement. Enforcement's not going to change. Whether you're enforcing 18 or you're enforcing 21, you're going to do it the same exact way. Nothing is going to change with that. So I don't see that as an issue. And I just want to bring to the attention of the council, when you get a chance, Google, it's a press release. It's a statement from FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb on new steps to address the epidemic of youth e-cigarette use. And I'm not going to read it because it's like 30 paragraphs, but I hope everyone does get to read it before we get to the ordinance part of it. If I could just read one short excerpt of it. The doctor says, I use the word epidemic with great care. E-cigs have become an almost ubiquitous and dangerous trend among teens. The distributing and accelerating trajectory of use we're seeing in youth and results of path to addiction must end. It simply is not tolerable. I'll be clear, the FDA won't tolerate a whole generation of young people becoming addicted to nicotine as a trade-off for enabling adults to have unfettered access to the same product. that's probably one of the most important paragraphs that comes out, but I strongly urge everyone to read that statement from the FDA and Dr. Godley before we have an ordinance with that. With that saying, I think we do need to once again be the leaders in New Hampshire, take the steps to move forward, help build our portfolio to being a very healthy community, and I think we should support this.
Councilor Chadwick.
Thank you. I think that it definitely dovetails with Healthy Monadnock's vision, and certainly supports the community's vision as stated in the comprehensive master plan regarding a healthy community. I do have concerns. I can appreciate the concept, and we all know that teenagers are rebellious. I think one of the best tools that we can give them is education and working with them in schools. But I do have concerns about how we're going to implement it and what impact it'll have on city resources, and how I want to hear more from the police. We really didn't hear, when I looked over the notes from MSFI meeting, really didn't hear much from them. So I think that the conversation needs to continue, and some of these other pieces need to be brought in order to make it a sound decision. So I will support moving forward. We do live in a state where it says live free or die, and people don't really like rules here. And we get to choose to ride motorcycles without a helmet, or a number of other things that are extremely dangerous. There's good arguments on either side of the fence. I want to hear more information, so I will support it in order for the conversation to continue. But that does not necessarily mean I will support the ordinance. It depends on how that all steps out.
Councilor Clark.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Everything this city does, from fire, police, inspections, welfare, is aimed at protecting the health and welfare of the community and the city residents. And this issue here is no different. It's clearly a health and safety issue, and it's our job to protect people from dangers. I'm frankly beside myself that tobacco products escaped the regulation that many of the other poisons did 100 years ago. They were able to stay legal, whereas others didn't, and they were regulated. But that's another issue. So I think that it's something that we do have standing. There is no really enforcement issue. As Councilor Jones pointed out, it just changes the age. They would enforce it exactly the same way. The state of New Hampshire put in their statute enabling legislation to allow us to do whatever we wanted to do on this issue, which, as you know, we don't get a lot of that. Usually, we can't do anything about a lot of the things because the state does not include enabling legislation. So this is something that we've got to do to protect our youth. As medical experts say, that the human brain is affected by poisons up until age 25, and probably beyond, but it's developing up until age 25. So, I think the age 21 is a good compromise. But we've got to protect our children from being addicted from these overzealous marketers, as Councilor Filio pointed out. We've got to go forward. The staff will create a good ordinance, and we can hash out all the little details, but this is something that we really need to do.
Okay. Are you ready for a vote? Councilor Sutherland.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just one other comment that I meant to mention earlier, and that was, I feel this is more of a feel-good issue. While we can say that we're going to lead and that we're going to inhibit the sales of tobacco to minors or 18 to 21-year-olds and prevent or at least inhibit the access younger children from having access to cigarettes. I think it's a whack-a-mole game. We're just pushing the issue. People can actually jump on the friendly bus and for $1, ride down to Swansea, down to Market Basket, and buy cigarettes legally at 18. So we have Chesterfield, we have West Swansea, Center Swansea, East Swansea, Marlborough, Sullivan, Westmoreland. Anywhere you want to go to get cigarettes outside of the city of Keene, just need to get a ride. So I think it's more of a feel-good issue.
Okay, you ready for a vote? All those? Okay. All those in favor of the intent of the committee report? Opposed? 2 opposed. Okay, the staff will draft an ordinance. City clerk, do you have the city manager's comment?
I do.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeene.com. Freekeene.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeene.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeene.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.